Good morning and welcome to the county seat. Today our topic is once again going to be on wild horses on the range. And we brought you an episode a couple of months ago, and a lot has transpired since then. Resolutions from counties have gone through, acknowledgments from the BLM, an entire string of events that leads us to where we are today. So we figured it was time for an update and a good, healthy discussion about where we go from here. But to have that discussion and you be a part of it, we need to bring you up to speed. So if you missed our episode a couple of months ago, let's go to a primer on the horse issue.
Wild horses were protected as part of the Wild Horse and Burro Act in 1971. And since then, the BLM has been mandated to manage the wild horses throughout the West, 11 Western states.
Today, wild horses and burros can be found all through the West Desert, with additional herds near Price and even in the Uinta Basin. Currently, wild horse populations are over what the BLM terms appropriate management levels, by 14,000 nationally and 1,300 here in Utah. In the past, the BLM has gathered wild horses off of the range and either put them up for adoption or put them into long-term holding.
We don't have enough adopters to be able to adopt all the horses that we remove off the range. And so the horses that aren't adopted, they go into holding.
Pushing long-term holdings upwards of 50,000 horses. With an estimated lifetime cost of $44,000 per horse, the numbers of warehousing them becomes staggering. Holding these horses cost taxpayers $46 million in 2013, or about 64% of the $76 million budget spent by the BLM managing wild horses and burros. Beyond the hard costs, there is also an impact on the range.
There's a lot of animals that depend on the land to make a living. There's the wild horses, there's wildlife, and then there's livestock operators. And livestock operators and wild horses can compete for forage. The biggest difference is the livestock operator, through management, it's a little easier on the ground than having the horses out here year-round.
The BLM has asked ranchers in some affected areas to voluntarily reduce their herds by as much as half, leaving ranchers wondering why they are making substantial sacrifices, while the BLM seemingly does nothing to control wild horse populations. This last spring, the problem reached a boiling point with local governments, prompting them to set up traps on private land and telling the BLM, "Gather up these horses, or we will." The BLM has since gathered 26 horses off of private lands, with authorization to remove up to 200 wild horses from the ranges in Utah, 50 of which can come from private lands. There isn't a single threat or solution to the problems that we are seeing out on the range. But what can be done from here? We will discuss that in our roundtable. For the county seat, I'm Derek Dowsett.
Now we've got the basic understanding down and everybody in the audience is on the same page. We're going to move into our discussion. When we come back from our break, we'll first sit with the BLM and talk about their perspective on this issue. We'll be right back.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
I'm a Utah's own dairy producer. I care about the health of my animals, and I care about the quality of food we produce.
Because when it comes to providing quality dairy products,
I understand the importance of Utah grown and raised.
And the jobs we enjoy are vital, because Utah's Own supports our communities.
As a consumer, I look for Utah's Own products, because Utah's Own is good for me, and it's good for Utah.
Keep it here at home, Utah's Own.
You go through the day-to-day repeating what you did yesterday. Don't you wish you could access that piece of your life that's missing?
August 4th, you can do just that in Cedar City as the Tour of Utah opens with a brand new 113-mile course that starts and ends right in downtown. Follow the action through the Parowan Gap, up to Bryan Head, and through Cedar Breaks National Monument. The Tour of Utah in Cedar City, August 4th. Visit cedarcityayl.com for more information about all the adventure you can experience in scenic southern Utah.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is the wild horse and burro situation across Utah. Many of the counties have expressed great concern, as have some of the ranchers, about the growing number of herds. And so now we have some background on where we're at. We're going to delve into some of the issues. I'd like to introduce Gus Warr, who is the lead for the Wild Horse and Burro program for the BLM here in Utah. Gus, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Chad.
Tell me about the status of roundups. I mean, it seems like every time in the past you've tried to do this, there have been a lot of animal rights challenges, environmental challenges, and you seem to be plagued with problems at rounding them up. Is this part of the problem that is existing in managing the herds, or is it just one of many?
I'd probably say it's one of many. I mean, it is a challenge to get gathers approved and get them actually implemented. I think the biggest challenge that we're facing right now in the Bureau and in Utah is getting the gathers approved because of, one, the limited space, and two, dollars. And the overriding is really the limited space. We have, nationwide, we have almost 50,000 animals in holding, and we have very little space left to put them excess animals in from gathers. So that's a challenge. And so, but we have been approved for some gathers, like you talked about, and they are ongoing. We actually have some bait trapping, water trapping currently going on in Iron County, and we'll have a gather coming up hopefully later in July in Beaver County to kick off some gathers that we do have approved here in the state.
There's about an overpopulation of about 3,000 head across the region.
In Utah?
Yeah.
Utah, we have a current population of about 4,000 horses and 300 burros, about 4,300 total. Our appropriate management level is about 2,000 animals, so we're a couple of thousand over. We're double of what we should be right now.
Is the roundup possible if you had the other problem solved of where to put them?
I think if we actually had additional space, we could probably get more removals approved. But as it is right now, with the limited space, we've only been approved for 200 animals. Where if we had additional space, we might have gotten approval for 600 or 800. Or the challenge that we have is we're faced with all the other states that have wild horses and/or burros, and so they're after those same removal numbers. The only tool that we have to place our excess animals is the adoption program. We don't euthanize horses. We don't send them to slaughter, which people read the contrary in the blogs and the media and stuff. But we only have the adoption program. If they don't get adopted, we put them into these holding facilities, either short-term or long-term. Long-term being pastures in the Midwest. And so we're very shackled, I would call it, in our ability to deal with excess animals.
I mean, eventually, won't that bankrupt the BLM to try and get the long-term pastures? Because you got to pay somebody to use that land.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and one of the things that we have continually went to Congress for is give us direction. We have laws and policies that we administer under. They automatically go back to congressional mandate of you shall do this and this and this. Right now we have some short-term and long-term solicitations for additional space that's going to come online. As you well know, that's going to cost more dollars. So we're going to be going to Congress asking for more dollars. If Congress denies us that funding, then we have to ask them, okay, what do we do with the animals?
So it's really, you're in a congressional boondoggle.
Yes.
You can't sell them for slaughter, and you have limits on where to put them. So you guys are really kind of shackled in this.
We are. I mean, we have people, I get phone calls, people love the fact that we actually put animals in long-term holding, that we don't sell them, for anything but the adoption program, and we have others that want us to get rid of them and do the total opposite. My answer to them is we have to go by the letter of the regulations and laws that we are administering, and it ends there. Any changes have to come from congressional directives.
What about the fertility issue? We're talking about birth control.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that genuinely a long-term viable solution to get the herds in line?
You know, currently the current approved formulations of fertility control on wild horses and burros is limited to 2 drugs: the Zonistat H, which is a 1-year drug that we can use, and the other one's called Gonacon. Hasn't had hardly any use at all on it. There's not much research on it. Those alone, no, that's not the answer. It's a tool that we can use, but we, as an agency, are looking at more of long-term, non-reproducing herds, possibly, to deal with the ever, expanding populations. Because the fertility control that's out there right now, it's a tool we can use. It does work, but there's limitations and challenges.
I would imagine,
yeah.
Because you catch the horse, I mean, it's just like somebody taking their regular
birth control pill.
Yes,
exactly.
And
yeah.
if the horse misses the next year, you got a whole year that they're not covered. So
the challenge we have is we could administer that if we gathered every year and administered that every year. So you have the controversy of the removals. The only exception to that would be is those animals that are calm enough or quiet enough that you can actually go out and physically dart them. And there is some herds we can do that, but a very small percentage on a zero ways.
So basically the labor involved in this is just
huge.
Huge.
Yeah, it is huge.
What about, how much impact does the drought play into the current situation? You got some desperate people out there.
We do. And drought makes, a good range manager. If it rains, you grow grass. Drought compounds everything. And drought is really affecting and compounding the problem we have out there. If we had a normal year, we wouldn't be near in the situation we are. But when you don't have rain, you don't grow grass, compounds it tenfold. So the drought is playing a huge role. It's not the complete issue, but it's definitely a big one.
So you had mentioned the legal side of things and saying that you're very restrictive.
Sure.
So let's kind of like run through NEPA, the Wild Horse and Burro Act, FLTMA, and see where those put the stranglehold on what would otherwise be a good option.
Okay. All of those laws you talked about, we administer the Wild Horse and Burro program under the 1971 Wild Horse and Burro Act. That act was actually amended by the NEPA, I mean the numerous laws. So you have the National Policy Act, you have the Federal Land Policy Management Act, which amended it, which calls for multiple use. So we have to have a multiple use mandate. Even if we wanted to have solely horses out there, we are restricted to multiple use on public lands. There's several other laws, like the Public Rangeland Improvement Act amended the law so that we are required to do inventories and different things of the herds. And so I wouldn't say they shackle or create barriers. They give us more tightened direction. So I always tell people, it's like we have a box here, and we have the horses in this box, and we keep putting more sideboards and more sideboards and limiting our ability to manage those animals how we maybe would like because of these different challenges for other laws and administrative procedures we have to do.
So somehow we need to get Congress to deal with this.
They have to, but it's such an emotional, such a challenging subject. Anybody that wants to get reelected, it's going to be one of those that they probably don't want to touch because there's a lot of emotion wrapped up around it, and it is a very delicate program to handle on that level, but it does need to be addressed.
Very quickly.
Sure.
Do the laws ever conflict with each other?
They can, yes. You can have one say one thing and one supersede it. So, perfect example is the Wild Horse and Burro Act specifically says we can do certain things where other laws come in and trump, or budget and say, no, you can't do this. So they do. They conflict, definitely, all the time.
Okay, I don't want to leave this without a chance for you to talk about the adoption program and put a plug in for it. So the rest of the time is yours to talk about that.
Okay. The adoption program, we need people to come forward and adopt some of these animals, give them a good home. We have some beautiful animals available all over the state of Utah. We have a very active program in Gunnison where people can get saddle-trained horses. We have trainers that are gentling horses for the public. So you don't need to get a fresh animal. You can actually get one that's partially trained and have a head start on it. So that's really going to help us out immensely if we can jump into that.
Okay. And how do they find out more about the program?
You can get on our website, contact any of your local BLM offices. Either way, there's somebody there to help you with it.
Thanks for joining us for this segment. We'll be back with a conversation from the other side of the argument here on the County Seat.
Along Interstate 70 and Highway 89 is an area that is rich with high mountain peaks, vast forests, lakes, streams, historical sites, and a climate that is perfect for outdoor adventure no matter what the season. Join us in Salina, Utah for a weekend of fun, food, and friendship at the Blast from the Past Car Show, July 26th. In the center of it all, Sevier County.
If you're looking for the center of the universe, well, good luck. But if you're looking for the center of the off-road universe, look no further than Paiute County. Hundreds of miles of trails turn your day of riding into a week, maybe a month. Heck, a lifetime wouldn't be enough. And this coming August is the perfect opportunity to hit the trail and participate in the Paiute Trail Jamboree. Take off from downtown Maryville by ATV or UTV and ride the most famous destinations in the world. Explore Paiute County and discover the magic and beauty of the land where the rainbow ends.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah County? Explore the Wasatch Mountains, escape the heat on Utah Lake, shoot a round of golf, visit any one of a number of events and festivals, snap a family photo at Bridalveil Falls, or any one of 100 things to do with family and friends in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Why is it that environmental protection and economic development are often placed at odds with each other? Well, in Duchesne County, they have both. Here, modern industry and resource development go hand in hand with some of the most pristine wilderness in the western United States. A strong economy balanced with a lifestyle of exploration and discovery. But don't take my word for it. Go visit them. Duchesne County. Close enough for business. Far enough, get away.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are today talking about the wild horse and burro situation in the state of Utah. We spent the first 10 minutes with the BLM talking to Gus Warr, who is the state lead for the horses. And in our interview, we discussed that he has so far got an authorization to collect 200 head of horses for Utah, 50 off of private land. And so far they've captured 26. They have got themselves a bunch of constraint, but they also say this is not the worst state in the West because Nevada's got a population of 25,000 horses and burros, and Utah's is much smaller. So with that being said, we're going to switch our attention here to the county side of the argument. Joining us for a conversation today, Mark Ward from the Utah Association of Counties, our public lands attorney, Commissioner J.R. Nelson from Emery County, which has more than its fair share of burros, I understand. In our conversation with the BLM is that Gus said their hands are tied because Washington only allows so much, and they're trying to get more money to get more places to keep more horses and burros at different places in the country. And that he said that policies are what's strangling it and making it hard to accomplish, and they're doing the best they can. So what say you to that?
They're spending 2/3 of their money allotted for horse and burro care or treatment management on warehousing them. And that's, they're, to my way of thinking, wasting too much money just warehousing them instead of managing them according to the Wild Horse and Burro Act. And if they'd follow the Wild Horse and Burro Act, things would be much simpler, but it's not very popular.
Mark, from a legal standpoint?
There's no authority in the Wild Horse and Burro Act to do long-term penning up of these horses. Their only option is either to try to put them up for adoption. First of all, eliminate the old and lame and sick animals. Try to put them up for adoption. If adoption fails, destroy them. Now, I realize they don't have financial authority to do that from Congress, but the Act gives them still another option, and that is to sell them, to put them on the open market at an auction and sell them without limitation. The backbone of the BLM's Wild Horse and Burro program right now is something the Act does not even authorize, and that is put them in a pen indefinitely with no view towards selling or no view towards adoption. That's why they don't have any money. They're spending their money on areas they don't have any authority to do. If they would simply follow the Act, then the problem would go away and they could get rid of them. And their obligation, by the way, under the Act is when they find that there are excess horses or burros that exceed the management levels called for by the plan, they have a duty to immediately remove them. And that's not my word, that's right out of the U.S. Code. Immediately remove those and get back to AML levels through either one of those three means. Eliminate old and sick, try to find adoption, or destroy or sell. Those are their only options.
And if I can quote Shakespeare here, we were all born to die. That includes horses. And it sounds really mean to euthanize or destroy these animals, but if you let the numbers continue to grow by huge leaps and bounds, sooner or later some catastrophic event is going to kill them, and it's going to be much uglier than euthanasia by the kindest means that you can do it. We have grazers on the Santa Fe Swell where we have large numbers of horses and burros who spent a lot of money, purchased grazing rights, and have never been able to put out the full number of cattle to use up their AUMs or the full length of time that they should have been allowed to be there. And these are people whose livelihood depends on grazing issues on the Santa Fe Swell.
Okay, now Gus did argue today that part of the problem is exacerbated by the drought. He didn't say it's any one thing. He said adoptions are down. He said that they're running out of space to hold them. He gave me a whole list of things.
Fair enough, Chad, but guess what? When drought hits, grazers cut their grazing level. Why aren't horses cut? Why do grazers always have to give way? Why aren't horses removed?
The cowboys are the only ones who make a positive cut. The horses are not cut. As a matter of fact, I know of places where the cowboys were hauling extra water because the horses were coming in and drinking the water that they had hauled for their cattle's use. Cowboys supporting horses for which they get nothing. They just get the cuts.
How do we solve the problem?
I'll throw out one. There's two or three things need to happen. I think there's only one long-term fix to this, and that is to transfer jurisdiction back to the states for the management of wild horses and burros. States are only ones, as I know, that have the will to really follow the prescription of the Wild Horse and Burro Act. Let's just adopt that act as part of state law, and let's have the states carry it out. Let's have the states responsibly do either elimination of old animals, adoption and or destruction or sale.
And one of the big issues is we have to look at HB 148, that is transfer of public lands to the state, which I support. However, the things they eliminate are national monuments, national parks, Forest Service, and horses and burros. That's an issue that has to be addressed by the transfer of public lands to the state. The state is going to have to deal with wild horses and burros.
Well, is the state afraid to do it? Are they afraid of its cost, or?
I can only guess, but yes, it is expensive. But that is something that's going to have to be dealt with.
But apparently it's much less expensive if you do what the law says as opposed to what they're doing.
If you follow the wild horse and burro law, it is less expensive to deal with them. No place does it say warehouse these animals, and that's what's being done, and it's very lucrative. You know, as a matter of fact, as a part-time gentleman farmer, I could make more money feeding wild horses and burros than I can running a herd of cows. Their money's there.
I mean, I hate to say it, but there's a market for horse products. And it's not such a terrible thing to admit. It's been that way for decades. And the horses were under control, but a different culture has sunk in, and all of a sudden managing horses reasonably is like taboo.
And the way we handle large herds of elk or deer, we trim them with hunts. Why can't we trim a herd of horses or wild burros down to a manageable size in the same way? Sell them off. Let people use the parts that they can use. And again, they're born to die, but if they die of a catastrophic event, it's an ugly death.
Well, and it's in a final wrap-up moment. That would also affect the rangeland and its health as well as the health of the animals. So with that, gentlemen, thank you for your contribution today. We'll be right back with more of the County Seat. We'll give you a wrap-up on today's events and a lighter look at the counties. We'll be right back.
There's no need to travel far to find that perfect family adventure. Welcome to Yuba Reservoir. Boating, fishing, camping, and ATV trails await your next visit. Join us in Juad County. It'll change your family forever.
What's the story of your life? What chapter are you on? Did you happen to get married recently? Perhaps you found your lost puppy at the animal shelter. Or you're taking an art class at the senior center. There's that flu shot that kept you well last season. And don't forget the museums and historical sites your family loves. And all the fun you have at the county swim center. County services, from search and rescue to maintaining roads, bring tremendous value to each of our lives. We're the Utah Association of Counties, helping you build the story of your life.
Color. It's something that can be seen. But have you ever wanted to reach out and touch it? Experience it. In San Juan County, Utah, color comes to life like nowhere else on earth. Color can be more than an abstract. Color can be your gateway to a new world. Visit San Juan County and explore the past, present, and future in a way that you've only dreamed of. San Juan County. Color your experience.
Unlimited opportunity for adventure? It's all about knowing where to look. ATV adventures, rock crawling events, art festivals, and wildlife events. The opportunities are limitless. Pick your adventure in Millard County.
There's no need to travel far to find that perfect family adventure. Welcome to Utah's Nebo Loop Scenic Byway, 38 miles of winding highway through the southern end of the Wasatch Mountains. Join us in Juad County. It'll change your family forever.
Welcome back to the county seat. There are some final thoughts that have come together as a result of our conversation today. The first of them is that the BLM is caught in a box. They are stuck within their own self-imposed regulations, and they can't seem to get out and get on top of this issue. In the meantime, the situation is deteriorating here and even more so in some of the other western states. They're doing what their own policy allows, but it's painfully slow. Now, I would like to point out that this show, this topic we have covered before, and it has been the most rewatched episode of our program on YouTube, and there are a lot of comments. It deserves a lot of comments and a lot of dialogue, and we invite you to participate in that process. So go to our website, thecountyseat.tv. That'll connect you to all our social media and get engaged in the conversation. And remember, the BLM is actually looking for and offering a prize for somebody who can come up with an idea that will help them that they're not thinking of. So put your thinking caps on, get the dialogue going, and let's really talk about the hard taboo issues that it will take to fix the wild horse situation. Thanks for joining us. Remember, local government is where your life happens. Be part of the solution. And we'll see you next week on the County Seat.
Don't imagine a Caribbean vacation. Win one right now through At Your Leisure, MSC Cruise Lines, and Columbus Travel as we give away a 7-day Caribbean cruise for 2. Sign up on Facebook at AYL TV or text keyword AYL to 58885 and watch At Your Leisure on ABC4 Utah.
If you like this video, then we invite you to subscribe to our channel, The County Seat. You can do that here. And we invite you to share with your friends. We also invite you to get all the latest up-to-date information by following us on our social media channels. And if all else fails, make sure that you watch The County Seat Sunday morning at 8:30 right here on ABC4 Utah.